Hey everyone, it's Ryan Mentz, and in today's video I'm taking a look at two new lenses for the Sony full-frame E-mount system. First up is the just announced Sony FE 20mm f1.8G lens, and the other one I have in my hand here is the new Tamron 20mm f2.8. Now there's a significant difference in price between these two, with the Sony being more than double the cost of the Tamron. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the difference, shooting them side by side. I'm out here at a local park and I'll be photographing off the a7R IV. Let's get started. Comparing the spec sheets of these two lenses begins to tell the story behind their purpose and design, as well as sets expectations on what they should achieve based on their price points. As we can see from comparing the dimensions, they are almost identical in diameter, 2.89 inches versus 2.87 inches, and this is further shown by the matching filter thread that they have in common. The Tamron is noticeably shorter at 2.5 inches versus the Sony's 3.33 inches. For the Sony, we have 14 elements in 12 groups, 3 of which are extra low dispersion elements plus 2 advanced spheric elements. Sony uses their nano anti-reflection coating on the elements as well as fluorine coating on the front. Meanwhile, Tamron has 10 elements in 9 groups, 3 of which are low dispersion plus 1 molded glass spherical element. Tamron employs their broadband anti-reflection coatings and also has a fluorine coating on the front element. The Tamron wins some points for having a closer minimum focusing distance of 4.3 inches compared to Sony's 7.09 inches. This equates to a 0.5x maximum magnification or a 1:2 reproduction ratio. The Sony has a 0.2x maximum magnification or a 1:5 reproduction ratio. Moving down the list, we also find that Sony is going all out by utilizing their best XD linear motor, while Tamron is using their OSD optimized silent drive motor. Looking at the controls found on these two lenses, there's a stark difference in user operability. The Sony features a focus ring, aperture ring, click switch, AF/MF switch, and a focus hold button, while Tamron simply has the focus ring and nothing else. The price to pay for each of these lenses is quite a difference, with the Sony costing $898 and the Tamron priced at just $349. Comparing photos at the center, we see that they are extremely similar in terms of sharpness and resolving fine detail. If I stare at them long enough, I can perhaps see a little edge given to the Sony, however it's close enough to not have any impact on me. The Sony has the benefit of being slightly stopped down from its 1.8 aperture to get to 2.8, so it's not unexpected that the Sony will likely maintain, across the board, better performance at the wide open 2.8 aperture of the Tamron. At the corners, this becomes more apparent, where stopping down usually solves sharpness issues faced here. At f2.8 for both lenses, I can see that the Sony produced a sharper corner with more resolution than the Tamron. Throughout testing these lenses, I also came to the conclusion that both are very good at handling any color fringing issues that typically pop up in these types of conditions where tree branches are up against a bright white background. I was actually going to conclude that neither showed signs of fringing until I really went out of my way in search of it. I did find some, but it's telling how little these lenses produce when I had to dig for it. A couple things to note looking at these photos is that there's a slight angle of view difference, with the Tamron showing more of a scene. Because of the more dramatic barrel distortion of the Tamron, it actually squeezes in a little more of the scene at the edges. If this is not your intended look, of course this will be nullified when the photo's perspectives get corrected in post-processing. Another thing I noticed, especially with this snowy scene, is that the color rendering of the Tamron is slightly more magenta. Or if you've been staring at the Tamron shots for too long, maybe you could say the Sony is more green. Next, let's quickly compare the vignetting for these two lenses throughout the aperture range. The next few photos, I'm comparing the autofocus characteristics of the lenses. From what I see with the lenses set to the same focus distance, the Tamron is a little bit busier and doesn't buff away hard edges as cleanly as the Sony. The difference here may be the additional spherical element that the Sony has, as well as the quality of the lens construction itself. Let's not forget that a difference in price means a difference in materials that these companies are working with. The next comparison I have is an autofocus test of me walking towards the camera. Because these lenses' hyperfocal distances are fairly short, you'll see that both have a decent crutch in being able to track focus if the subject isn't standing very close to the camera. As I move closer to the camera in these shots and the autofocus tracking really starts to pick up on my face, I don't really see a clear difference between the two lenses in their ability with this. Both are quick to snap back into place when I hide my face and then reveal it again. Although it's not apparent here, there actually is one big difference in video autofocus that I'll get to soon. But first, after the excursion at the park, I went home and did some autofocus testing on the photo side of things. With each lens, I played fetch with my dog Luna and would shoot a burst of images as she ran back to me with the ball. I repeated this several times with each lens and went to the computer to see which one came away with more keepers from the sequences. As it turns out, again, I couldn't really see any apparent differences in the keeper rate here. While the Sony on paper has a much better internal autofocusing system, the Tamron didn't seem to really be any worse with fast action. Both severely struggled to keep up as Luna would enter within several feet of the camera and start filling about half the frame with her body. Again, this is an excited dog sprinting back to me with her ball, so she's moving fast, and I wouldn't really draw the same conclusions if you're photographing a model that's walking towards you at a reasonable pace. I think that would be much more on pace with the video test I did where it was flawless on both sides. Heading inside, this is what I wanted to share with you as far as the biggest difference in video autofocus. It's the noise of these two lenses. The Tamron, as I don't have to tell you, is ridiculously loud with its external focusing and OSD motor. Let me remind you that the S in OSD is supposed to stand for silent. The Sony, on the other hand, does not get picked up by the camera mic nearly as much. If your audio is placed off camera far enough away, this test doesn't mean much. However, these lenses are a vlog-loving 20mm, which means that I know many people will be recording audio straight off the hot shoe or with the camera's internal mic in a pinch while holding the camera just an arm's length away, and that's where this becomes relevant to know the difference. Lastly, in the studio, I'm comparing the close focus distances of these two lenses and what that difference actually looks like. And with the Tamron at its close focus distance of 4.3 inches means that I can't even have the lens hood on for the test as it gets in the way. With the Sony, I backed up to 7.09 inches and also shot this at an equal f2.8 to the Tamron wide open. Then, for fun and just watching how the colorful bokeh balls would turn out, I also made a shot at f1.8 wide open for the Sony. Comparing both shots at their most wide open and their closest focus distance, the Tamron clearly suffers more from an onion ring effect inside the bokeh balls, and they are more cat-eye shaped than the softer and rounder Sonys. Also for fun, while the camera was set at the Sony minimum focus distance, I popped off the Sony lens and put on the Tamron just to see the difference. It's obviously not at Tamron's minimum focus distance anymore, but this is what the comparison looks like when the camera is set at the same distance between the two lenses for close focusing. This is Sony at 2.8 versus Tamron at 2.8, and Sony 1.8 versus Tamron at 2.8. I hope this video was a big help to those that were looking for it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It would mean a lot to me to know you're watching, and with spring just around the corner, I have a lot of good behind the scenes and technique videos planned that go beyond the gear talk. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you next time.